My name is Patrick Coakley. Most people know me as Irish. I'm Director of Field Operations for the Hub City Spartanburgers. Yeah, well, I'll start the night before, after the game. We will do the repair on the mountain plate, and we'll drag and water the infield so that I know when I leave here, the field is ready to play. We're in the home bullpen here, and we repair these each morning. The night before, we do the mountain plate. We do that so that we know coming in, the field's ready. There's not much that has to happen to the field, and we're ready to play out there. So whether it be rain or some kind of natural disaster, we're good out there. In here, we have time to come in the morning and get it done so that we can repair it, it can set up. The guys, they're not gonna come out here and use this until, say, 1:30. So it's got plenty of time to do what it needs to do. So the next day, we don't start very early. We'll start at 9 o'clock. So we get the bullpens ready. The bullpens are very important, even though they're over there where nobody sees them and pays attention to them. That's where all the work gets done for the pitchers. It's not just a place for them to warm up before they come into the game. They do a lot of stuff in there, conditioning and whatnot. That happens down there, so it's important that they are just as good as anything we have out here on the playing surface. When I get in there, I've got to drag it out. I had it rolled last night and just let it sit, and then I've got to drag it out. I've got too much top dressing on it right now, so I'm going to be sweeping that into piles, into windrows, and just scooping it and getting it off. That's not something we do every day. Normally the top dressing is good, and by this time in the morning I'll have watered it, probably put it underwater, at least a good healthy watering, if not just put it straight underwater, and then move on to cut. So when weather's not an issue, at least when rain's not an issue, it gets to be a very methodical day. I mean, it's pretty standard. Not a lot of extra things going on. A lot of times you'll get people, and sometimes people that have been around the game for a long, long time think we show up at 3 o'clock and just put lines on the field. But probably they don't understand the amount of hours that go into it. And really, they don't understand, I hate to use the word passion because it's such a cliche. There's got to be a better word, but we treat the field like it's our child. We feed it, we take care of it when it's sick. We're constantly thinking about it. So yeah, it becomes like a child to you. And that's something that's hard to articulate to somebody that doesn't do it for a living. The players will start coming out. If they have early defense, they might come out 1:30, 2 o'clock. So you have to be ready for that, but that might be 15 minutes with 2 guys on the infield. And then you drag that out, you water again. So with, from the last time I did this, that's the biggest difference is more the flow of the day. The amount of work is not that much heavier, but
would you describe it as more hurry up and wait because the schedule's more intense?
A little bit, yeah, because the one barometer I always had was when the team came out and stretched and threw as a team. You did some early work before that, but you knew that you had 30 minutes to drag the infield, get some water on it, that kind of thing, once everybody's in right field and out of the way. That doesn't happen anymore. They come out of the locker room hot. So they just have to throw for 10 minutes and then they're ready to go. So they might be doing early defense with 2 guys and then all of a sudden they go right in the infield.
So communication's even more important with the coach to tell you when they need it ready for what.
I'm blessed that I have a manager that is super communicative.
Good.
I get a full schedule the night before.
Wow.
He comes and, he communicates with the visiting manager so they can coordinate cage times and all that. So he's made it super easy, to go through that transition, and it's just just like anything else, once you get used to that flow, then
right.
it becomes like clockwork. But it's, like you said, a lot of hurry up and wait. We do a lot of, honestly, in the afternoon standing around, you're not gonna go do another task for 10 minutes while they take infield. You just wait there, and then you gotta move cages around. And then one thing that's a little different, you get 15 minutes or so between batting practice.
That's nice.
So you get to drag it out, you get to water.
That's nice, you get to touch up water. And
yeah, and then, the visiting team, they'll do either infield or, it might not even be a full infield, it might just be the middle infielders. Or there's a couple times they took PFP and then go into their batting practice. So
is that standard across the league, 15 minutes in between each workout?
About that, yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. It really gives time to keep that moisture in there.
Yeah, and that was new to me because before it was all we had time. We'd just run out and do a drag, and you're off. And honestly, at that time, the teams were super appreciative of that,
right?
Because not everybody did it. But now we can, especially this time of year, getting that extra water in, even if it's a quick one,
absolutely,
is huge.
Yep.
So. Even the visiting managers have been great. They are, all of them have worked with us. I think, it's nice them coming into a brand new facility. They're usually happy to begin with, just being here. And we just try to accommodate as much as we can. And I think they appreciate that. So it just, when you approach it like that, they become very, very cooperative. So that's it, back to why we're standing here, that's really the first thing. We get these mounds ready to go.
Before the heat of the day too, I'm sure it gets hot out here.
Oh yeah, as soon as the sun comes over here, it'll really bake them.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point on terms of, I don't want to say most groundskeepers undermine the importance of this. I'm not trying to make that point, but to your point, these are every bit as important as a mound, because if these aren't as consistent, exactly like the mound, you will hear about it.
Oh yeah,
and so sometimes bullpens don't get the attention like you're seeing here.
We have to cut, get mounds and plates ready, we gotta put lines down, but there's also batting practice and taking care of the team themselves. I mean, at this level especially, they get a lot of work to do. They're trying to develop players. And with that, they gotta come out and do some extra work, and that's what we help them do. The other thing they miss is when the team's on the road, we don't just go home for a week. That's when the real work gets done. We, do the aeration, we do the edging, we do all that extra stuff that keeps the field at a high level. Weather, that just, how do I put it? It just adds a layer of urgency. Nothing changes, unless it actually starts raining. So until it's raining, you still set up BP, you still do everything as if it's going to happen. And then once it starts raining, then it just depends on what time of day, So if BP's set up and it decides to start raining, then we get a bunch of stuff in our way before we can put the tarp on. So yeah, weather just adds that wild card, and you just got to react to it. I haven't had to do it yet this year, but on occasion we'll stay and we'll actually leave the lights on and cut the field at night after the game, so we have a fresh cut for the next day. You just you got to make sure everything's 100% game ready, so the next day you come in and you might have to put some lines down or something. But for those early games, yeah, you got to just be ready. Now, the other part of that, usually the players aren't coming out and doing anything. They might stretch and throw and just play, but they're likely not going to come in and hit, at 9 in the morning. So that makes it a little easier. For a double header, everything is exactly the same. You just have to do it twice at the end. This here is a good example of why sometimes bullpens can be a little more challenging to fix. On the game mound, you have very concentrated areas. You got the hole in front of the rubber, and you got 1 or 2 holes where the pitchers were landing. Here, I mean, you got multiple pitchers throwing off of this thing every single day. And they're not just throwing, but if you saw the toys that we had back there in the other bullpen, they're doing different kind of calisthenics or they're throwing those medicine balls and all kinds of weird things, but they'll do it off the mound. So you get all these kind of pock marks. And that's where just knowing, I would say that's where the art comes in this, you know, you got to know what holes are worth repairing. Well, why it's important is exactly that last statement. It's safety. It's always safety. You hear anybody in my business talk about why they do it, and it's, you know, safety and playability. You know, that's the mantra. And, you know, for me, aesthetics are a distant third. I will, maybe more than most, you know, it doesn't bother me if something looks a little wrong here as long as it's safe. You know, playability-wise, one of the things I talk to our coaches about, like I do no pattern on my baseball field because it plays better without one. So I don't do the fancy stripes and all that kind of stuff. I have an appreciation for it, but once I started doing the manner in which I do now, the grass blade just stands straight up, and the ball roll is more consistent and better, so I'm sticking with that, you know. So I'm gonna sacrifice treating my field like an Etch-a-Sketch for, you know, a good ball roll. So
That's tight.
yeah, the thing I wanted to point out, I stopped doing patterns back when I was at Ripken, and I stole the idea from our friend Greg Elliott. I never talked to him about it. I don't know why he does it the way he does it, but when I started doing it, what I discovered is that it's great for playability. You go back and forth on the same stripe, and it just stands the plant right up. So now that it grows better, and you lost a lot of that wiggle, and I was curious, coming here, would you get the same effect out of the Bermuda as we did on the bluegrass? And the answer right now is 100%. Talking to the manager and just watching the ball, you don't get that wiggling that you get, you know, sometimes with the Bermuda when you have the patterns in and it's just going back and forth as a outfielder's coming in to field it. So while we lose a little bit on the aesthetics from all the striping and the patterns, we gain a lot on the playability side. So that's why I just kind of gave up on patterns. I'm constantly watching radar. You know, when you see me walking around the field with my phone, I'm not playing that Pokemon game or whatever it is, you know. Yeah, just watching radar, seeing where the storm's coming from, when it's coming in, trying to time it. If it's going to be here for BP, is it going to be here for, you know, the start of the game, whatever. And then the communication cycle starts. I'm always talking to Chad, you know, letting him know what I got in mind. And then when it gets close to game time, then Tyson, our GM, he and I have to get together and say, all right, you know, do we have to delay this? And then it becomes, you know, we got to get the managers together. Once that decision is made, we let the umpires know. So it's a series. It's almost like it's its own communication tree, you know. And then you actually have to physically go out there and put the tarp on and take it off at some point as well. So it's all about the timing. If it happens at 11 o'clock in the morning and, you know, you just throw it on, take it off. But of course that never happens. If it's going to rain, it's going to be at the most inconvenient time ever. So that means like 6:45 or something like that. And one thing people don't understand, at least usually the general public doesn't understand, is if game time is in question is very important because they don't want to burn a starter, which means they don't want to have a guy that's scheduled to start. If he gets up and throws 3 pitches and it rains, and he doesn't get to take the mound again for another 5 days. And they get very, very grumpy about that when that happens. So we try as best we can to make sure that doesn't happen. But then you get the aspect of you've got the business decision and you've got the baseball decision, and you've got to come together and make you know, sometimes you go one way, sometimes you go the other. If you've got 5,000 people here that paid to see a ball game, you've got to get it in. But these are professional baseball players. They understand this, and they work with you, you know. So they want to play in front of people too, you know. Otherwise, they wouldn't build something like this. They could play at the local rec yard, you know. So, yeah, it's usually about timing, and getting all the right people, you know, managers, the GM together to make the best decision for that day. Well, the challenges were, we were very front loaded on the schedule. I have these numbers like stuck in my head. I'm at the 4-month birthday of this surface, because the grass went down March 7th, I think was the actual day, those days right around March 7th. And we put 47 games, a graduation at home plate that had a stage and all that. We had a concert in the outfield, and then whatever you call the July 4th thing, where we just let everybody come out and run all over the place. You know, that's a pretty hefty schedule for the first 4 months. And, you know, within the first 2 months, I mean, we played over half of our games, you know. So we were very front loaded. And then we're opening a brand new ballpark around it, so just the atmosphere was a little tense. Everybody was trying to just take a deep breath and not freak out, because we all knew what we were up against. Like, you don't know the problems until they present themselves, even in a brand new ballpark, you know. So you just had to roll with it. I remember when we were officially given the field to where we started having to maintain it, I mean, that was nice and everything, but I had no equipment. I didn't even have a rake, you know. Now, did it matter that much? Because nobody was using it, you know, but we had to cut and do certain things. And then we only had one access point, where once the wall of the field was put up, we had about 20 subcontractors just in the maintenance area, which would have been our area. So we were given the field, but we had nothing to work. It was crazy back there. So it was that kind of thing where you're dying to get out there and do your thing, but it was more just behind the scenes stuff that was preventing you from doing anything out here. So luckily the water was running, so we just had to water it and hope it grew. So that made it simpler. But when opening day came around, or, you know, the exhibition games that we had, you know, it was just kind of winging a prayer. Let's go, see what we got. But on just a game-by-game basis, if you've got a normal, just your average game, the amount of runs, amount of runners, remember, we're dragging every 3 innings as well. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't get out of control. But, you know, as I'm out here, if at night I'm dragging it out and I see an area that needs some attention, then I can hit it.
Right.
And I may just grab it by hand and hit that area. I don't necessarily disrupt the entire
Or even with
surface.
a rake that would simulate a nail drag in a small area.
Exactly. So it's, so yeah, I'm not one of the guys that just gets out with the nail drag every morning and hits everything. I like to just keep it nice and tight up top.
Well, by the looks of it, you don't need a nail drag. I don't see any potholes in there, or any indentions, or heck, even cleat marks. It's a nice, smooth, even surface.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hop on the drag. We're gonna fluff it up and see how much of this stuff I gotta get off.
All right, get back to work.
The advice I would give young people would be, you gotta love it. There's no in between. To me, it's very binary. You love it or you don't. I'm uniquely suited to this industry. The hours have never bothered me, because you're here a long time, but you're on a baseball field, you know? We're not saving lives here. We're just trying to make something better, you know? It's a good time to get in to this industry, I think. It's not quite like it was. I mean, salaries are coming up. You can actually make a living doing this now. Most satisfying, a couple things. When visiting players would come up and just say, I love playing here, you know? That was always a great compliment. When, you know, a player would seek you out and come over and say, like, you know, you guys do a great job. We love playing here. You know, that, from a professional standpoint, that's about as good as you can get. You have some fans that are just, these guys are baseball fans, and they come out and they never thought that a place like this could be built in their backyard, you know, in their hometown. And I've had grown men cry just looking at the field, and just, you know, it's a little awkward when you have that conversation. But it just shows you, like, how, it's odd, but how important a place like this can be to some people, you know. Some people it's just a casual place to have fun. To some people they are emotionally attached, and it's great, you know. So, and then of course when you have the outside, the non-professional games, the high school games, sometimes the youth fields, and to watch young kids freak out when they run out on a professional baseball field for the first time and get to play on it, and that's pretty cool. And I think it's a great time to get in, but you gotta understand what you're getting into. You know, it is a challenge. Some people just think they think it's fun for a while, but they're like, yeah, the heck with this. I'm not gonna be doing this for a living, because the amount of time you spend here is a lot. This is one of my favorite places to be. So my favorite time to come in here is like on a Sunday when nobody's here and I just walk around, you know, and you know, stare at the grass. But yeah, that's what I would tell the young people coming in. It's a great time to get into it. Don't believe all the nightmare stories you hear. Go and experience it for yourself. You know, some of these nightmare stories, sometimes that's actually the good stuff. That's the perspective I have now. Like, oh, we pulled tarp 500 times yesterday. It's like, so what would you be doing if you didn't do that? All right, really, you know, it's not that hard. Nobody died. You know, go out and experience it and see, you know, and if you get caught by the bug like I did, you know, it's pretty good.